A federal judge rejected landlords' request to end the eviction moratorium. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's bad news for landlords. The federal judge that was looking at the case of the CDC eviction moratorium has rejected landlords' plea to her to just completely throw the thing out. But before I get into that article, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of this judge, okay? I think it's a bunch of crap, but I'm not a legal professional. I'm just a landlord who just wants this whole thing to end. Anyway, this article comes from thehill.com, and it says, Federal judge rejects effort to block eviction moratorium. A federal judge in Washington, D.C. on Friday rejected a request from a group of landlords to block the Biden administration's renewed eviction moratorium. The ruling by U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich, a Trump appointee, leaves intact the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's extended freeze on evictions, which is set to run until early October. The development comes after Friedrich ruled in May that a previous version of the CDC eviction suspension was an illegal exercise of the agency's authority, though she agreed at that time to delay enforcement of her decision, citing the risk to public health if evictions were allowed to proceed. Oh my goodness, this is so frustrating, okay? You think that you have a judge that's going to make a decision in your favor, and it ends up not happening. And God, all I want is for this whole thing to just be over. I want an injunction or something put into place that will completely shut down this moratorium until the Supreme Court can make a binding decision. And the problem is that it just isn't happening. Everything seems to be working against us right now. It seems like there's no easy way out of this, and it's just absolutely frustrating. The ensuing months have seen a flurry of political and court activity related to the eviction freeze as the Delta variant of the coronavirus has spread through some of the most eviction-vulnerable communities in the U.S. The moratorium has faced numerous court challenges, leading to a patchwork of interpretations nationwide on its lawfulness. The somewhat technical issue before Friedrich here has which of two higher court rulings, one from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and another from the Supreme Court, she was required to follow. In June, the D.C. Circuit and later the Supreme Court denied requests from the landlord group to immediately implement Friedrich's ruling, which would have effectively ended the eviction ban. But where the D.C. Court said clearly that the stay on Friedrich's ruling should remain in place, the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 ruling, was more equivocal. Yeah. And this goes back to what I was saying before about Brett Kavanaugh, okay? This guy is supposed to be a conservative Supreme Court justice, and he just completely just threw the Constitution out the door and said, oh, we're going to allow this to expire. You have to make a binding decision, or they're going to just keep throwing more and more eviction moratoriums out there. That's the whole problem with him just allowing it to expire. What an idiotic move, okay? And it just pisses me off that he even did that, okay? You should have made a binding decision into the eviction moratorium immediately because it was 100% unconstitutional. And we cannot allow an unconstitutional order to stay in place. And this is the exact reason why they extended it again. And all these little state moratoriums that are still occurring, they're unconstitutional as well. They all need to be thrown out. We need a binding decision from a strong Supreme Court. And that's not what we were given. Instead, we were given this wishy-washy, oh, we'll just let it expire. Bull crap, okay? I'm just so sick of all of this. We have to end it. Justice Brett Kavanaugh in June joined the majority to deny the landlord's request, but also said he agreed with Friedrich's view that the CDC had exceeded its authority in enacting the moratorium. In a brief concurrence, Kavanaugh said he believes that Congress would need to pass new legislation for the CDC to lawfully push the moratorium past July 31st. At that time, four of the court's more conservative justices Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett indicated that they would have lifted the stay and allowed Friedrichs' ruling to take effect while the Biden administration appeals. When the Biden administration on August 3rd acted on its own without Congress to renew the lapsed eviction freeze, the landlord group cited the opposition expressed by Kavanaugh and the four other conservatives and urged Friedrich to invalidate the latest version of the eviction moratorium. Yeah, the landlords group's argument is solid, but here's the thing. Kavanaugh might have written that, but his decision said the opposite of that, okay? That's why I had a problem with Kavanaugh's decision. But in her Friday ruling rejecting the landlord's request, Friedrich said she was bound by the D.C. Circuit Court, the intermediate appellate court between Friedrich and the Supreme Court. Because the D.C. Circuit's judgment affirming the stay binds this court and the Supreme Court did not overrule that judgment, the court will deny the plaintiff's motion, she wrote. See what I mean? The Supreme Court did not overrule the Circuit Court's finding, which means she basically can't make a decision that goes beyond what the appellate court already said. So her hands are tied, and this all falls back onto the Supreme Court, and specifically Brett Kavanaugh for not making a decision that day and instead just allowing it to expire. What an idiotic move, and it just ends up punishing us landlords, okay? An attorney for the challengers, led by the Alabama Association of Realtors, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The CDC measure, originally enacted in September, protects tenants who state under penalty of perjury that they are unable to pay rent and would face overcrowded conditions if evicted, threatening public health. The renewed eviction freeze enacted earlier this month and set to expire October 3rd is narrower than the previous nationwide iteration, instead focusing on U.S. counties experiencing substantial or high levels of community transmission levels and the coronavirus, while federal rental aid continues to trickle out to renters. The Treasury Department in late July said roughly $3 billion of the $46 billion allocated for emergency rental aid have been distributed by state governments. Well, where do we go from here? That's the real question, okay? We lost this battle. I believe still that we can win this war, but we have to push this up through the appellate or through the Supreme Court. You know, I know it's the same appellate court that was there before, but if that's the path we have to take to get up to the Supreme Court, so be it. And I know this is what they're counting on. They're counting on, you know, this whole process taking a long time. Well, the thing is, it still has to go to the Supreme Court. It needs to be just thrown out completely, okay? We need that judgment that says, hey, eviction moratoriums are unconstitutional and you can't do them anymore. We need that. And that way, the lawsuits that landlords can file to receive their compensation from these governments, they can take place, okay? So, bad news, but at the same time, you know, I'm still optimistic that this whole thing will eventually come to an end.